Y'all ready to have some fun tonight? 2019, this was a big year. See, some of you I know in this room, it was like the best year of your entire life. But I also know that some of you, it was the worst year of your entire life. And that's actually a part of the story of us, right? That we can be in the same room with people that can't think of a moment that was not filled with more joy, and some people that can't imagine having an ounce of joy in their life. And that's why we need each other. Because there's moments when you need someone else's faith to spur you on. There's moments when you need someone else's hope to be the hope that you have yet to find. And that's why community matters, because together we are always more powerful than we ever are alone. And 2019 was just crazy. So just in case you're wondering, like, what happened in 2019, just a couple highlights. The number one Google search of 2019. Want to know what it was? Disney Plus. Number one search of 2019. Other top searches, the Notre Dame fire. The Area 51 raid. Remember that? 2 million people RSVP'd, and like 2 people showed up. We still don't know what's there. Nipsey Hussle. Right, such a tragedy, but such a great reminder that when you give your life away on behalf of others, your impact can go far beyond your last breath. And this was the year of the baby. Baby Shark made an appearance. We had Da Baby with the bop. I'm not gonna do it right now. The royal baby was born. And then, of course, the cutest baby of them all, Baby Yoda. I mean, me and my wife, we had a baby this year, and I can tell you it was not as cute as Baby Yoda. I looked at him like, dang, you ain't Baby Yoda. Check it out at Mosaic this year. Listen to all that we got to be a part of together. At all of our campuses across the world, we had over 250,000 people come through our doors. There were over 11,960 decisions that people made to follow Jesus this year. It's crazy. This year we had 492 baptisms here at Mosaic. It's amazing. And we even had 370 babies born at Mosaic this year. That was a joke. That was an exaggeration. You guys are like, wow, that's a lot. But it felt like you just looked to your left and there was a pregnant woman at Mosaic. So many babies. But I don't think that's incidental. See, I think God is trying to tell us something, that he is about to birth something powerful in 2020 and beyond that we can't even imagine what he's about to do. See, this year was a phenomenal year that we got to be a part of, and we believe 2020 is going to be even more incredible. Like we're in the midst of so much uncertainty. We don't know where we're going. We don't know what's ahead of us, but what we do know is that we're going to do it together. That we're going to go with one heart, with one spirit, with one mind. Because not only is 2019, or not only right now, is today the last Sunday of 2019, it is the last Sunday of the decade. Think about that. We are closing the book on one decade, and we are about to launch into a new decade. See, some of you are here tonight, and you're about to step into the best decade of your life. But how you enter into something has a huge impact of how you end something. And if you will go there today, if you will just invite God into it, I know some of you right now, you're going to make a decision tonight that isn't just going to affect your next year, it's going to affect your next decade. And so I want to just take some time and some moments to talk to you about just why it's so important that as you launch into this new year, this new decade, that you begin to really identify the voice of God. What it is to be able to hear from God, and not just hear from God, but then be able to respond and obey to what he has to say. See, we're going to read this passage together in Matthew chapter 15. And it's this moment that going to enter into, it's an uncomfortable moment in the life of Jesus. It's a passage that feels really bizarre, and at face value, it could seem like there's something going on that we're not fully privy to, but it's so important when we're having this conversation about really being able to articulate, understand, and hear the voice of God. In Matthew chapter 15, starting in verse 21, it says this: leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him crying out, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly." Jesus did not answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, "Send her away, for she keeps crying out after us." He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." The woman came and knelt before him. "Lord, help me," she said. He replied, "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." "Yes, it is, Lord," she said. "Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table." And then Jesus said to her, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted." And her daughter was healed at that moment. Such a fascinating moment in the life of Jesus. So we find ourselves in the middle of this story where it seems like there's incongruency about what we have learned about who Jesus is, or what we've heard about his character, and what we witness in this passage. That it seems like there's something going on, that it doesn't make sense, that Jesus is really, when you read this passage, does it seem like it's contradictory to what you have discovered about the character of Jesus? That's not a rhetorical question. Does that seem contradictory? Yes or no? Yes, you read this, some of you are like, is that in the Bible? Where are you reading from? Like a part of me would be like, God, somebody in your PR department should have been like, "Hey, this is a bad look, Jesus. We should take this." When we're like documenting and we're telling these stories, let's just leave that part. You know, when you call her a dog, let's leave that out. But they didn't. They kept it in there. So we got to dive in and go, okay, what's happening? Because you have this moment where this woman comes in complete desperation, believing that Jesus can actually bring her hope. And she humbles herself to come to him, and in her humility, she's met with humiliation. It just seems like it's such an interesting moment when she comes to God completely desperate, and then in verse 23, it utters these words, and it says, Jesus did not answer a word. You ever had a moment in your life when you were just desperate with God? Where you were praying for that thing to happen, you're calling out to him, God, you're asking him to rescue, and you desperately wanted God to show up, and when you wanted God to show up the most is the moment that you heard from him the least. You know what I'm talking about? Like, I know there's been those moments in my own life when I'm like, God, where are you? And here in this moment, it says that Jesus did not answer a word. It says that he met her desperation with silence. Is it possible that when God is silent with us, it is not actually a way for him to keep us at odds, but it's actually a way for him to call us closer? So is it possible that we have misunderstood the way that God will use silence in our lives? That we think that God's silence means there's a lack of interest, but really God's silence is an invitation to come close. And there's this moment when Jesus is silent that it reminds me there's so many moments of silence in our own lives, and we fill the gap of that silence with distrust rather than believing in the heart, character, and the nature and the goodness of God. But there's something about silence, right? We have it in our sporting events, right? There's moments of silence when somebody has passed away. Right? There's when you come to places like this, sacred spaces, you want to eliminate distractions and have a silence where God can speak and move. Right? You go to the movie theater, the arc light, you understand when the movie is going, there should be no noise. Unless you're like me. I feel like it's a dialogue, not a film. Even we see this and experience this with barbers, right? You know what I'm talking about, like, fellas, like when you go to your barber, I don't know about you, but there's this awkward tension of like when there's moments of silence, do I say something? Or do I just sit here? And they're getting you ready, they're edging you up, and it's been some silence. I had a friend of mine, George, is a barber, he hooked me up this morning. I was like, my fade is off. You know, it's like fading to the side. Can you fade it in, all right? And he came in, and we're talking about life, and he's engaged, and then, but the moment comes out, and he pulls out that razor blade, and he's about to get the edge real nice, and at that moment, we have an understanding, no words will be said right now. There is a complete understanding that this is a sacred moment of silence. I do not want you talking, I want you focused, right? Because that's what's happening. See, he may not be using words, but he's communicating. Because that silence is communicating there's a focus right now. And is it possible that in your life, when you sense God's silence, it's not that he isn't speaking, it's that he's focusing. And he's trying to get you in the place where you're finally ready to hear exactly what he has for you. That we are uncomfortable with silence. We have to learn how to really sense God in the midst of it. And it even reminds me of when me and Rebecca were dating. We were dating a few months, and again, it was that place where, you know what I'm talking about, when you're in a relationship, when it's like, you both know, you both love each other, but nobody said it yet. You know, the awkward thing of who's gonna say it first? It's like the relationship double Dutch, you know, who's gonna go in first, right? And so we're kind of in that place, and I feel like she loved me. I knew I loved her, but nobody had said it yet. So we're at Trader Joe's grocery shopping, and we're in the we're with the tomatoes, and I say a joke, and she laughs because I'm a funny guy. What can I say, right? And she just laughs, and after she goes, "That's why I love you." Right? And immediately, "That's why I love you." She took off to the bread aisle, freaked out. She's over looking at the gluten-free bread. It's like, you eat all the gluten in the world. What are you doing? But she's like, "I didn't mean for it to come out. Now I'm scared." So I just played it cool, didn't say anything. But I knew, you said it, so all right, I'll reciprocate. So a couple days later, it was like, okay, here's the moment now. I feel like it's right. And she was just about to hop on a plane and head to Australia because her visa expired and she had to go and work on it to be able to come back. And so I got to tell her before she leaves. So we're hanging out, and I just said, I mean, you already know, but it's like, girl, I love you. For the next 5 minutes, we just sat there together in silence. She didn't say a word, didn't even say thank you. I would have appreciated that. She said nothing. And then the next day, she hops on a plane, she takes off, she flies back to Australia. And I'm left there feeling so naked, feeling so vulnerable, being like, I just professed my love and I got nothing in return. So you know what I did the moment that happened? The moment I did that, when she gave me her silence, I retreated. I said, I don't want nothing to do with you. I showed you how much I loved you. I told you, so I want nothing to do. I tapped out. No. You know what I did? I went and pursued that woman. So I said, hey, I don't need you to say it because I'm not simply telling you how much that I love you because I need you to tell me. It's a relationship that I have with you that is not contingent on whether you love me back. And I just pursued her, and I pursued her, and I pursued her. And eventually, a couple days later, she said what I already knew she believed. But I think this is what happens so often, is that we see silence as an obstacle and a wall, and whether it could be a portal to your future. So I think so many of you are waiting for God to speak. He's already spoke. You just haven't moved on what he's told you. And then the silence is not God's disinterest. The silence is him waiting for you to have the courage to already do what you know you need to do. And I know there's some of you here right now, 2019, that some stuff has gone down in your life. That God has not fully showed up the way that you wanted him to, but what he's asking of you. If you're gonna be in this place where when this next decade is gonna be the best decade of your life, you wanna be able to hear from him and all that he has for you, the first thing that you have to do is you have to push through the silence. You have to declare and say, I'm not gonna stop. Actually, I'm gonna be more hungry, I'm gonna be more urgent, I'm gonna pursue you even more. That just because God's silent to you does not mean that you need to be silent to him. What could happen in your life if you saw the silence of God as an invitation rather than an obstacle? See, when this woman comes to Jesus with a complete belief that he can move on her behalf, and then when she's met with silence, check out her response. In verse 23, after Jesus does not utter a word, it says, so his disciples came to him and urged him, send her away, for she keeps crying out after us. He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. And then verse 25, the woman came and knelt before him. Lord, help me, she said. He replied, it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Yes, it is, Lord, she said. Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. Dang. It's like, dang, Jesus, you have to be that harsh? He said, I did not come for you. I only came for the lost sheep of Israel. He's insulting her. He's telling her, you do not belong to me. He's telling her that this is not a space that is available to you. And then in her response to Jesus' vulgarity and his harshness and his being rude, her response is humility. See, what do you do to God? What's your response to God when he does not show up in your life the way that you want him to? Do you choose arrogance or do you choose humility? Because maybe in 2020 and in this next decade of your life, maybe if you want to hear from God, maybe you need to push through the silence, but also maybe you need to change your posture. Because if you can change your posture and take on a posture of humility, it is crazy how often you will find yourself at the feet of God. She comes and she says she kneels in front of Jesus. And it gets even worse after she kneels. Then Jesus says, it's not right for me to take the crumbs and give it to the dogs. Jesus calls this woman a dog. Why? Because if I could take a step back, every time I read the scriptures, I always read it through the lens of what does this say about the character and nature of God? And what I know about the character and nature of God is that he is a God who's always loving, who's always compassionate, who's always inclusive. So I know that this seems contradictory to the nature of God. So what could he be saying? See, what was happening in this moment, what had happened was, Jesus was not echoing things that were in his heart. He was echoing things that were in humanity's hearts. See, the disciples that were in that room, they did see this woman as a dog, and Jesus said, not on my watch. See, he was echoing what they believed to be about Gentiles, what they believed to be about Samaritans, that they thought that they were God's chosen people. And they were, but they didn't realize that God said, I chose all people. And you see this woman as a dog, and you've treated her as a dog. You see an entire people group as less than. And what I need you to understand is that I'm the one who's always fighting for people. And he was echoing the things, culture that have become so normal. Oh, how things have changed. So many people saying things about God, putting his name on him that he never said for himself. And he said, I'm tired of this. And the moment when he says, it's not right for me to take bread and throw it to the dogs, what he's trying to tell them is you need to understand she's not the dog, you are. See, Jesus is always about reshaping the narrative. He's always about finding the outsider and letting them know that there's always been a seat at the table. And just because people in my name didn't create a space for you, I need you to know that I always create space for you. That's always who Jesus is. You got to have a posture change. Because look what this woman does. Is she not only takes on a posture of humility, but then she also takes on a posture of gratitude. What we were talking about earlier. That when Jesus said, it's not right for me to take the crumbs and toss it to the dogs. And she says, oh, yes it is, Lord. Because even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. You know what she's saying? I don't need it all. She said, Jesus, if you're willing to just give me the crumbs, if it came from you, that's all I need. She had such a posture of gratitude that she was willing to receive the crumbs. And some of you are in this room and you think God hasn't shown up in your life because you wanted the whole loaf. And you're like, God, how come you didn't do anything? And he's like, look at your life. Can you just take a step back and think about it? See, no, you didn't get that job you wanted, but you actually got the family that you wanted. You over here looking at me like, God, but I thought I'd be married by now. And he's like, yeah, what if you could be married by now, but then what if your relationship was broken like it was in every other one? Maybe I'm trying to heal you and actually get you into friendship and community so that you're in a marriage that lasts for a lifetime. I'm about to pop a blood vessel. Because this is too important. We're not talking about a year. We're not even talking about a decade. We're talking about a lifestyle. And I know that there's some of you that you're desperate, not just for a new year, you're desperate for a new you. And that's what God is inviting you into, is that he doesn't want to just change your year, he wants to change your life. But you got to have a posture of gratitude and not a posture of entitlement, because entitlement will kill you from the inside out. When you engage with God or when you engage with people thinking that they owe you something, it will make you sick. And that's why gratitude is so important, because gratitude is like the anti-venom of entitlement. Is that you are just so thankful that even if it's just crumbs, you understand that God is so good that even in the little, he can do so much. And this woman lives out so beautifully what looks like when we take on a posture of humility and a posture of gratitude. And then I love how it ends, where it's like the whole time, it felt like, if I could visualize it, Jesus, as he's saying these things, he realizes that he's trying to break paradigms and he's trying to get into culture, but he's just waiting for like the real Jesus to come out. And I feel like he takes off the mask. He's like, no, this is what I really meant. And verse 28 says, then Jesus said to her, woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted. And her daughter was healed at that moment. This is one of my favorite things about God is that when you bring something to God, he can heal it in a moment. See, some of you, I know you had the hardest year of your life. You had more days where you felt depressed than you had more days that you felt joyful. You had more days that you felt lonely than you did when you were part of community. You have more days when you're just wondering whether you had value, whether you mattered. And it feels so heavy. And when a day turns into a week, and when a week turns into a month, and when a month turns into a season, all of a sudden you feel like this is the only story that you know. Which is why Jesus came. Which is why Jesus did everything that he ever did, is because he was trying to remind you that in just a moment, if you'll just give him that moment, it could all of a sudden become a divine moment. where a story that was once filled with brokenness, in his hands, he can create something really beautiful. And I know that there's some of you here right now, you're desperate. You've tried it all. You've invited God into parts of your story, but you haven't yet invited him into the whole story. And there's a healing that God wants to take place in your soul that he cannot create in your life until you give it to him first. Because when you're hearing from God, and when you're in this place where you're ready for all that he has for you, you have to push through the silence. You have to change your posture. But then you also got to fight for your why. See, for this woman, when she came to Jesus, she didn't just come on her own. She came with her daughter in her heart. She came with someone else's well-being in her spirit, and that there was a why that was bigger than herself. And I think that that's so often when Jesus responds most powerfully, is that when we don't come to him asking him to make our lives better, but we come to him asking to make the world better. But it starts with you giving him your heart. It starts with you having a moment that becomes, God bless you. It's my prayer for 2020 that he would bless you. But there's going to be moments in your life where you understand that there's some moments that matter more than others. That there's some moments that you could sense it in your spirit, that God is speaking to you. He's calling you back home. That he's trying to shake some things in you because he knows that in order for your future to change, that you must first change. And if there's some of you here in this room tonight, that you're ready to just give God your all. You're ready to be like this woman who does not let anything stop her from receiving all that God has for you. Then what we're going to do in a moment is that we're just going to ask God to do what only he can do. And we're going to, in this place, we're going to have a moment of silence. And we're going to, in that moment of silence, ask God to say whatever it is that your heart needs to hear. So if we could all bow our heads and close our eyes right now. If you're here and you know it's your time, then what I want you to do in this next 30 seconds, this moment of silence, is I just want you to ask God, what do I need to hear? Just listen to what he has to say. Because in the silence, sometimes he speaks the loudest. If you're here and you know it's your moment, you know it's time to open up your life and to trust Jesus with everything. You know that the only way that you're going to begin 2020 with the momentum and the power and the strength that you need to have, you first have to trust Jesus with your life. Then right now I want you to pray this prayer with me. I just want you to say this. Say, Jesus, I give you my life. That's it. Jesus, I give you my life. And it's when you say those words and you declare it to him, you give him all of your life. You give him all your brokenness and all your fears, all your insecurities, all your worries. And then in exchange, he gives you his life, and it's full of freedom and grace and mercy and kindness and joy. Jesus, I give you my life. If that was you here tonight and you prayed that prayer and you declared, Jesus, I'm all yours, and what I want you to do is I'm going to pray for you. I want to pray a blessing over you. I want to pray God's provision on your life. I want to pray that he would move and speak. But first, you need to have a moment where you are willing to go all in and declare and say, Jesus, I'm yours. So if you prayed that prayer as quickly as you can and as high as you can right now, I just want you to raise your hand so I can pray for you. Beautiful. Yep, beautiful. Come on. Keep them up. Anyone else? Beautiful, beautiful. Let's go. Beautiful. Jesus, give you my life. Yeah, I see you. Come on. Anyone else? We'll have one more moment because God will always create moments even for one more. Come on, bro. I see you. Beautiful. Beautiful. Father, I pray for every hand that's held high in this place right now, Jesus. God, I pray that you would just overwhelm them with your love right now. I pray that they would just swim in your grace. I pray they would know that there is nothing they could do that could keep you from their love. God, we are so thankful that you do not see us for who we used to be. But you're always calling us into a new future. And so I pray, Jesus, that I pray a blessing over 2020 on these hands, that it would be a new future and be a new hope that they step into, that they would just be walking signs of what happens when you trust Jesus with your life. And we thank you, Father. We're so honored that there is no one like you. And we thank you that you call us to be a part of this journey where we get to bring so much hope to those that need it the most. God, I pray that what you pour into us, we would never keep for ourselves, Father, but we would learn to give it away freely. We thank you, we love you, and ask all this in your name, Jesus. Amen and amen. Hey, Mosaic, can we thank God for everyone who raised their hand today, who made a decision? Beautiful. What a year. What a decade. And we are just getting started. Man, a few months ago, me and my wife were in Paris, which are like how all the best stories start, right? Like that, my boy Eric Roy, if you guys know Eric Roy, all his stories start with like, yeah, this one time I was in Bali and I ate like a banana off the nose of a chimpanzee and it was divine. I was like, really? I just went to Trader Joe's yesterday, but you went to Bali. That's cool, yeah. But a few months ago, we were in Paris and we were coming back from Amsterdam, and we went to a different airport than we had been before when we landed, and there was an Uber station that was like nearby, but it was a couple blocks away, and so we walked there, and we were trying to wait for the Uber, but he could not find us, and then finally, after like 20, 30 minutes, he finds us, and we get in, and we're a little nervous because it's late at night, and we're like trying to talk to him, but he doesn't speak English, and we don't speak French, and I'm trying to tell him, like, we want to go to a different place that we put in the GPS. So can we go to our hotel instead of this restaurant? And he's trying to talk back to me in French, and I don't understand. I'm talking to him in English, he doesn't understand. So finally, he just says, shh, shh. And then we just sat there. And he drove, and I'm like, oh no, this is how I die. I'm like, I've seen all the Taken films. It's like, it's over. And you know, so I have my phone next to me, and I'm like voice memoing, like that's gonna do something, right? At least they'll hear how I die. And then all of a sudden he makes a phone call, and somebody on the other line starts talking, and they're talking in French to each other. And now I'm like, I'm definitely getting kidnapped. He's like, where do you want me to drop them off, right? What arrondissement do you want me to kill them in? And I'm so nervous, and my wife is next to me, and she's getting nervous because she can sense my nerves, and then finally, I hear the voice on the speakerphone start speaking in English, and he says, my friend wants to know where you want to go. He doesn't understand. And then I was like, oh, I get it. He called you to help translate for me. And it's, yes, can you tell your friend we want to go to the hotel instead? And then they start talking in French, and they ask me questions in English, and we all of a sudden had this synergy. And then he hung up the phone, and then he just turned around, he looked at me, and he just like smiled, like, we're on the same page now. And I realized I wasn't gonna get taken, and I felt good about my life. See, some of you have not resourced Jesus the way that you need to. See, he is the translator of your future. See, there are things that he wants to do in and through you that you've been trying to find when you can't understand. And he's like, you gotta call me. I'm the only one that can give you the directions to your future. So I know this, whether you had a good 2019 or a terrible 2019, what I know is that we all have the promise of the best decade of our lives. We all have the potential that this could be a year that we never forget. What I know is that God is waiting for us. He's waiting for us to have the courage, the faith, the hope. And he's like, if you won't do it, I'll send someone else. But I don't know about you. I don't want God to do something through someone else that had my name on it. See, I don't want God to do something through Mosaic to someone else that had our name on it. So this year, when 2020 starts, let's let tonight be the night where we created a momentum, a wave. When we walk into 2020, we said, we've been ready for you. Come and get us.